I believe that people will rediscover, or maybe for some people will discover, the pleasure or maybe happiness of being with one another. So we've spent so much time alone, or maybe with a few people, a few relatives, that I think we are all craving for spending time with a larger group of relatives, with our friends, but also beyond friends and relatives, with people around us, people who happen to share the same community. So in fact, what I think we're going to be rediscovering is the fact that we are social animals, or maybe even political animals, as Aristotle once told us. Well, at least in the United States of America, where I live right now, one of the main threats of fulfilling, the potential of living together, of enjoying each other, is really the intense political polarization. And it's particularly striking because it bears on the pandemic. Pandemic has, how to react to the pandemic has become a political matter, and also on tons of other social issues. So I think to address the intense political polarization and to reap the benefits of living together, forming a social community, we need at least two components of wisdom. The first one, I think, is something like openness to others, as different as they may be, right? So I think we should learn to open to others, even if they come from the other side, whatever the other side is. And the second one, which is related, is what I like to call a sense of self-distanciation, self-distancing, not social distancing as we've seen, but self-distancing. And I think it's a learning that we must learn that some of the ideals or values that define us maybe aren't that essential to who we are. And once we've gained this self-dissociation, we may be better to interact with people on the other side, whatever the other side looks like. Well, I'm mostly worried about despair at the social and psychological level. And I think for good reason. I mean, many people have lost friends. More than 100,000 people in the US only have died, and much more, of course, all over the world. They've lost relatives, and sometimes they've lost those people without being able to see them. Many people are without a job, and many people have had their dreams crushed, because they had to close their job, because they've been fired, and so on and so forth. And I think people are, for good reason, many people are on the brink of despair. And I think that's what worries me most for the months to come, and maybe even the years to come. Well, I think it's difficult to be wise when you have excellent reasons to feel despair. So my sense is that wisdom really requires not simply inherent strengths or inherent virtues, but also a proper social network and proper external circumstances. So wisdom surprisingly requires luck, I think. So it's hard to be wise when you have good reasons to actually be despair. But I think it's people who have been luckier, right? People who haven't lost their job, people who haven't lost relatives, people who haven't lost friends. They must deep into their own wisdom to help those which are on the brink of despair. And I think what they must do is indeed show compassion and empathy at this time for those around us who haven't been as lucky as us, or as me anyway, or as the luckiest among us. Well, patience and resilience. And I mean, the pandemic, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And at least in North America, but I'm also worried in South America, and it's just starting in some parts of Asia, it's starting in some part of Africa. We have not seen the end of the pandemic. And history from past pandemics suggests that impatience is one of the main causes of second waves and third wave, and so on and so on and so forth. So patience and resilience are actually the two core components of wisdom, which I think we should all try to rely on in the coming months.